Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into something, well, everyone deals with it, right? Body hair.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a visible part of us, tied up with how we look, how we feel about ourselves.
Totally. And it's complicated. For some people, it's just there, maybe even a source of pride. For others, less so.
Right. And you can't really talk about it without getting into societal stuff, especially, gender. Western culture has had these pretty different ideas for men and women for a long time.
Exactly, which makes things like the hair positivity movement really interesting, people pushing back against those norms.
Yeah, advocating for just accepting it, however it grows naturally, challenging that pressure to remove it.
So that's what we want to do today. Really dig into how people, specifically in the U.S., feel about their body hair now.
Data on the screen, numbers come alive. Male, female flows where the patterns thrive. Visual charts, public colors unify. Gender decoded, bringing truth to light. Small drum fill. We break it down, real talk. Trends unveiling facts from every block. Here's your insight, watch the data glide. Gender decoded, let the beats collide.
Today, we're tackling something we all deal with, right? Body hair.
Mm-hmm.
And forget the usual grooming tips. We're going to dig into a recent survey. It looked at 2,000 people across the U.S.
Yeah, from SmoothSkin. It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. We want to understand our relationship with it.
Yeah.
Like, when do we start getting rid of it? How do we feel about it?
There's certain areas we just, really dislike.
Exactly. So our mission here is to pull out the most maybe surprising bits from this data to get a deeper handle on why we feel the way we do about something so, human.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, you listening probably have your own history, your own opinions on body hair.
Sure. Everyone does.
And maybe this dive will make you think about it a bit differently.
Absolutely. What's immediately kind of striking is how much emotion and, frankly, effort we put into managing something that's just natural.
Totally.
This survey gives us a really interesting look, sort of beneath the surface of our habits, reveals some interesting patterns.
Okay, so let's jump in. The big question, where do we least want hair? It kind of makes me think back, Julia Roberts, Notting Hill premiere, 99.
Oh, yeah, the unshaven armpits. Big headline.
Huge deal. It felt like a statement, but has what we consider unwanted hair really changed that much since then?
Well, that's a really sharp observation because, while we might see more diversity in how body hair is shown today, the survey data, it points to some dislikes that seem to stick around.
Okay.
Especially when you look at the differences between men and women. So for women, the number one most disliked area was the upper lip.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Armpit hair was second. Then you had cheeks, neck, and arms following that.
So even with maybe more acceptance, facial hair is still a big thing for women.
It seems so. It really raises questions about, visibility and maybe some really deep-seated beauty standards.
Yeah, that visibility point is key. And it's, quite a contrast with what men reported. Their top disliked area was the neck.
Yeah.
Then cheeks, upper lip, chest,
Yeah.
and armpits were way down. Number 6, right?
Exactly. Number 6. So, yeah, facial areas are a focus for both, but the specific spots and the priority, quite different.
That armpit ranking difference really jumps out. 2nd for women, 6th for men. What do you think is behind that?
Well, it almost certainly reflects different societal expectations, right?
Yeah.
And the survey actually backs us up with numbers. Women are significantly more likely, like 2.5 times more likely than men, to feel that societal pressure to remove body hair.
Wow.
The numbers are 10% of women feeling it versus just 4% of men.
Okay, that's quite a gap.
And women are also a bit more likely, 5% more, to feel society just has different expectations for them versus men regarding body hair, 26% versus 21%.
So those messages we get, subtle or not so subtle, they really do seem to shape our preferences.
They really do. It's clear from the data.
It really quantifies that feeling many women talk about. It's not just, in their heads. But it's also worth remembering, isn't it, that this hair we spend so much time and energy on It actually serves a purpose.
Oh, absolutely. This survey touched on the evolutionary side, too. Protection, temperature regulation, even reducing friction. Biology has reasons for it.
Right. It's not just decorative.
Exactly. So the fact that we have such a strong inclination to remove it from certain places really underscores how powerful those social and cultural norms are.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how much our desire for, say, smooth skin overrides those basic biological pluses.
And that kind of brings us to the emotional side of things.
Right, because it's clearly not just about function or practicality.
Yeah.
How do we actually feel about our body hair?
This is where it gets really interesting.
The survey gave some historical context, right? Like hair removal goes back millennia, 3000 BC even.
Yeah, ancient history.
But it was only in 2018 that we saw a TV ad actually showing female body hair. That feels significant. A shift, maybe, or just catching up with reality.
It's definitely a marker of change, I think, but it's also crucial to remember how relatively recent the expectation of widespread female hairlessness actually is in the grand scheme of things.
Right, not forever.
Not at all. The early 20th century, that's when things really shifted. Think about campaigns like that 1915 Harper's Bazaar ad. It explicitly called hair removal necessary for women.
Wow, 1915, explicitly necessary.
Yeah. And that kind of messaging repeated over generations, it can have a really deep, lasting impact on our norms and how we feel individually.
So, okay, fast forward to today. How do those ingrained expectations show up in our emotions? The survey found a pretty big emotional gap between men and women, didn't it?
A really significant divide, yes. Women are almost twice as likely as men to report having negative feelings about their body hair.
Twice as likely. What are the numbers?
It's striking. 63% of women reported negative emotions compared to just 35% of men.
That's huge.
It really is. And when you look at men, the main emotions are actually positive. Acceptance leads the way at 25%. Then you have happiness and confidence.
So for a lot of men, it's just there. Or even a good thing.
Seems that way. A non-issue, or maybe even a source of positive feelings for some.
That's such a clear contrast. And for women having those negative feelings, what were they?
Annoyance was the most common at 27%, followed by feeling uncomfortable. That was 12%.
Annoyance. I can see that. Just the upkeep.
Exactly. But interestingly, and maybe hopefully, 14% of women did report feeling acceptance.
Okay, so that's something. A positive trend, perhaps, toward body neutrality or positivity?
It's definitely a number to keep an eye on, that 14%. However, when you dig into feelings like empowerment or confidence related to body hair, the gender gap is still very much there. Only a tiny fraction of women, just 2%, feel empowered by their body hair. Compare that to 4% of men, so double.
2%, wow.
And men are nearly twice as likely, 1.8 times, to say they feel confident because of their body hair. That's 11% of men versus 6% of women.
So it really highlights how differently body hair links to self-assurance for men and women.
Absolutely. For many women, it seems body hair is still perceived as something to be, managed, an unwanted thing, almost.
Rather than something neutral or even positive?
Precisely. Not often a source of confidence or empowerment based on this data.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to the practical side, the time commitment. When does all this usually start?
Right. And this is where the data had some interesting surprises, especially around how much time we think we spend versus the reality.
Yeah.
Looking at the areas removed most often, for women, it's face and armpits. On average, about every 3 days in primarily the facial area, and slightly more often, actually, every 2 days on average.
Okay, so different spots, slightly different frequency. But what about the total time spent per week or per year?
Well, this is where I was quite surprised. The total time is remarkably similar.
Really?
Yeah. Men average about 17 minutes and 40 seconds a week. That adds up to around 15 hours a year, give or take.
15 hours a year, okay. And women?
Women average just over 16 minutes a week, so about 14 hours annually.
Huh. That is surprisingly close. It kind of challenges that idea that women spend way, way more time on this.
It really does. It suggests maybe a shared investment of time, just focused differently.
Interesting.
However, the most significant difference pops up when you look at the age. People start removing body hair.
Ah, right.
This, I think, speaks volumes about those differing societal pressures we talked about.
Okay, let me guess. Women start earlier.
Much earlier. This was a really striking finding. Women, on average, begin removing body hair at 14 years and 10 months old.
Wow, under 15?
While men start much later, 17 years and 8 months, on average.
It's almost a 3-year difference.
Nearly 3 years, yeah. That's a considerable gap in when these routines typically begin.
What do you think that means?
Yeah.
Girls starting so much earlier.
Well, the data really reinforces this early start for girls by the time they're just 13.
13.
Yeah, nearly 3 times as many girls have started removing body hair compared to boys. It's 44% of girls versus only 15% of boys at age 13.
44% by age 13. That's almost half.
And by age 16, the vast majority of women, almost 70%, have begun. Compare that to just over a third of men, 35%.
69% versus 35% by 16.
Exactly. So this early start for girls really suggests that those societal expectations around female hairlessness kick in much, much earlier.
Right during those really crucial developmental years, too, affecting body image, self-perception.
Potentially, yes. It paints a clear picture of how early these norms become ingrained for women.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. This deep dive into the SmoothSkin survey, it's really shown a light on some key differences, hasn't it?
Definitely.
How men and women in the U.S. deal with their body hair. We've seen different disliked areas.
Yeah. Very different emotional responses.
Yeah, hugely different emotions, and that really noticeable age gap for when hair removal starts.
And it all seems to point back to those powerful, sometimes invisible, societal expectations.
Right, and hopefully exploring this data prompts you, our listener, to maybe think about your own relationship with body hair.
Mm-hmm. Do these findings resonate? Do they match your own experiences?
Have these bigger societal pressures shaped your routines, your feelings about something that's, well, just a natural part of being human?
It's a good question to ask yourself, I think.
It really is. That's sort of the key takeaway, isn't it? Given the actual biological purpose of body hair and these clearly documented social forces pushing removal,
Yeah.
it really makes you wonder, what is the future going to look like for body hair acceptance and for removal practices?
That's definitely something to ponder, isn't it? What comes next?